Have you ever stumbled across a story online that hits you so hard it doesn't even feel like just some random post? Today I was scrolling through Reddit and found a few stories like that. Way too real, way too creepy to ignore. I've got a feeling you're going to want to hear these. So, no more waiting, let's dive right in.
Story 1.
It wasn't static, not at first. It was a hum, so deep in my ear canals it felt like pressure, the kind you get after a loud concert or maybe surfacing too fast from a deep dive. Except there hadn't been a concert, and I hadn't been diving. I'm a bioacoustic researcher, analyzing underwater mammal vocalizations. Hours clamped in headphones, parsing clicks, whistles, and the vast, crushing silence of the abyssal plain. I chalked it up to occupational hazard, auditory fatigue, manifesting as tinnitus. I started taking more breaks, lowering the volumes, even sleeping with earplugs, though the hum seemed to resonate inside my skull. The hum persisted, low and throbbing, like a heartbeat just slightly out of sync with my own, a discordant biological rhythm. Then came the texture. During playback of hydrophone recordings from our Antarctic expedition, the mournful songs of blue whales, the rapid-fire chatter of dolphins, I noticed an artifact. Not noise, but a rhythmic structure riding beneath the authentic signals. Thrum, click-click, thrum, click-click, incredibly faint, nested deep within specific frequency bands I specialize in isolating. I blamed the equipment. Our sensitive hydrophones capture everything from distant submarine screws to the groans of shifting tectonic plates. I swapped out shielded cables, recalibrated the interfaces, processed the raw data on 3 different machines using distinct algorithms. The artifact remained, like a ghost frequency burned into the recordings themselves, an acoustic watermark etched onto reality. Thrum, click, click. The pattern was sharpest, most defined, in recordings from the abyssal trench we'd surveyed, that impossibly lightless crevice where our gear strained against pressures that could implode steel. The same trench where, for 17 agonizing minutes, we'd lost all contact with the submersible drone Orpheus. The same trench where Orpheus's forward camera had captured, milliseconds before the feed died, not just shadows, but what looked chillingly like impossible geometries shifting against the particulate snow, vast, interlocking shapes that seemed to absorb the drone's lights rather than reflect them. My apartment became the next vector, not through speakers. It was the building itself. The low groan of the ancient radiator didn't just groan, it pulsed with that exact rhythm. Thrum, a long, resonant sigh of metal. Click, click, 2 sharp ticks as it contracted. The whirring compressor of the refrigerator developed a subtle hitch, a momentary pause and double beat that perfectly mirrored the click-click. The dripping faucet I'd sworn to fix no longer dripped erratically. It was now thrum, a slow, forming drop. Click-click, 2 quick drips into the basin. It wasn't louder, but it was structurally embedded. My carefully calibrated listening, honed by years of separating a single whale calf's cry from miles of ocean noise, was now helplessly tuned to this other signal, woven into the fabric of ambient sound. I mentioned it to Liam, my colleague, during a data-sharing video call. Not the plumbing, just the recording artifact. Weird, he said, his image pixelating slightly. Could be sympathetic resonance off the ship's hull, or some undocumented geophysical pulse. He rubbed his temple, a gesture I'd seen him use when battling a migraine. Run a comparative spectral analysis against the NOAA deep-sea database. Maybe cross-reference seismic charts. There was a fractional pause. His eyes unfocused for a second, darting to something off-screen before snapping back. Practical approach, I muttered, try to ignore the faint thrum. Click, click, I could almost swear was emanating from my own laptop speakers under his voice. The database comparison yielded nothing. This pattern wasn't biological, wasn't mechanical, wasn't geological. It didn't match anything known. The feeling started then. Not just hearing it, but sensing it. A low-frequency vibration felt more in my sternum than heard with my ears, especially late at night in the quiet dark. It synced perfectly with the thrum. Sometimes a sharp, almost electrical ache would lance through the fillings in my molars, coinciding precisely with a click-click. It was as if my skeleton was becoming a tuning fork, my body a resonance chamber for this pervasive, invasive rhythm. Recording it directly remained impossible. Microphones faithfully captured the radiator's groan, the fridge's hum, the faucet's drip, but not the pattern modulating them. It wasn't an addition to the sound. It felt like a fundamental alteration of it, something inherent in how the waves propagated or perhaps how my brain interpreted them. Each night, Mia's photo on my nightstand seemed to be watching me with increasing concern. I'd met her during the expedition, a marine biologist completing her PhD on cetacean communication patterns. Her fascination with the complex syntax of sperm whale codas had first drawn me to her. Now, remembering how she declined to join the final deep trench survey, something about that place makes me nauseous, like standing at the edge of a skyscraper. I wondered if she'd sensed something we hadn't. After 3 nights of fractured, dreamless sleep, punctuated only by the thrum, click-click, echoing in my bones, I found a paper. Not acoustics. Declassified Military Project Archive. Project Echo Shade, 1970s. Theoretical work on sonic camouflage. Frequencies designed to hide within ambient noise, piggybacking on existing waves. The lead author, a Dr. Eris Thorne, theorized about resonant drift, how complex interconnected systems, from atomic lattices to macrostructures like buildings, even biological neural networks, could involuntarily fall into synchronization with a specific, deeply embedded carrier oscillation. He was trying to create perfect acoustic stealth. The program was abruptly terminated. Thorne's final, frantic notes, barely legible. Phase 3 test subjects report perception of non-existent patterns manifesting visually and tactily. Subjects exhibit anomalous cellular restructuring. Observed piezoelectric effects in bone marrow at 37.4 Hz resonance. Thorne himself reports auditory infection progressing to neural entrainment. Isolation protocol ineffective. Recommend immediate level 5 containment and deep ocean disposal. Disposal of what? The equipment? Or the subjects? The ambiguity chilled me more than certainty would have. Then it became interactive. I was trying to isolate the artifact's frequency band in a particularly clear dolphin recording. As I adjusted the digital parametric EQ, slowly sweeping the center frequency, the rhythm in the room, the radiator, the hum in my chest, the ache in my teeth, intensified sharply, the click-click becoming painfully precise. I froze, hands trembling over the mouse. I nudged the filter back. The intensity subsided, leaving a lingering echo. I tried again, slowly, deliberately. The rhythm pulsed in response, faster, more insistent as I approached a specific narrowband around 37.4 Hz, slower as I moved away. It wasn't just present, it was reacting. It knew I was trying to isolate it. That night, I dreamed of the trench, not observing, but being there, suspended in that crushing, absolute blackness. But the darkness wasn't empty. It was densely packed with translucent, interlocking geometric structures, pulsing with faint, cold blue bioluminescence. Thrum, click-click. They were impossibly vast, lattices of light extending beyond sight, beyond comprehension. And they were aware. I felt their collective, alien attention focus on my tiny point of consciousness, a pressure far greater than the water. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the sheets twisted around me. The air felt thick, viscous, as if the very atmosphere in my bedroom had increased in density. The digital clock by my bed flickered, 3:37 a.m., then 3 hours, 74 minutes a.m., for a split second before returning to normal. The thrum, click-click, seemed louder now, embedded in the very ringing silence of my ears. I called Liam at 3 a.m. It's aware, I choked out, whispering as if the pattern itself could hear through the phone line. The silence on the other end stretched for too long, filled only with faint line noise that seemed to pulse. Then his voice, strangely flat, almost metallic. I know. I've been analyzing the raw Orpheus data too. The pattern. It's mathematically perfect, isn't it? Elegant. Liam, this isn't just data. Something's wrong with these recordings Listen, he interrupted, his voice dropping lower, smoother. Thrum, click, click. Feel how it simplifies? How it organizes the chaos. I haven't needed sleep in days. My focus is crystalline. You know what's beautiful? If you visualize the waveform in 3 dimensions, it generates perfect fractal geometries. Infinitely complex, yet utterly ordered. A pause. Just like those structures in the final frames from Orpheus. I slammed the phone down, my hands shaking. I call Mia next, desperate to hear a voice untouched by this thing. Her sleepy hello was the most normal sound I'd heard in days. The recordings from the trench, I blurted, "Have you? I haven't listened to any of them." She interrupted, suddenly alert. After what happened to the survey team, I couldn't. Survey team? What happened to them? A pause. You don't know? Oh God, they didn't tell you? 3 of them are in intensive psychiatric care. Mass psychotic break, they're saying. The 4th, Dr. Ramirez, walked into the ocean 2 days after returning to shore. Left a note about rejoining the network. I thought that's why you were calling. Sleep deprivation gnawed at my sanity. The visual distortions began, not hallucinations, but perceptual reorganizations. Staring at a screen, the spaces between letters would momentarily pulse, expanding and contracting in time with the thrum. Textures in my peripheral vision would grain, ceiling tiles would suddenly snap into sharp, repeating geometric tessellations for a heartbeat before dissolving back into normalcy. It wasn't just seeing things, it felt like the fundamental grid of my perception was warping, aligning itself to the rhythm. I stopped all audio work, locked the recordings away, put the headphones in a box. The silence was worse. The pattern felt louder, clearer, emanating from the walls, the floorboards, the marrow of my bones. For days without real sleep, I fled my apartment, desperate. In a crowded downtown coffee shop, the cacophony, clatter of cups, hiss of the espresso machine, overlapping conversations, initially provided a buffer. But then, slowly, inevitably, horrifyingly, the ambient sound began to reorganize. The barista's steam wand didn't just hiss, it pulsed. Thrum, long hiss, click click, 2 sharp bursts. The chime above the door, a passing siren, a child's sudden laugh. They all began to subtly fall into the rhythm, distinct sounds becoming mere components of the larger pattern. Thrum, click click, and worse. As I scanned the crowded cafe, I noticed a woman in the corner, her finger tapping rhythmically on her laptop as she worked. A businessman by the window, blinking in perfect time with the pattern. A barista, her movements becoming unnaturally fluid as she prepared drinks, each action precisely aligned to the rhythm. They showed no distress, no awareness of their synchronization. It wasn't just my apartment. It wasn't just the recordings. It was everywhere, or was spreading through me. Was I becoming a carrier, an antenna? Mia agreed to meet me at the university lab. "You look terrible," she said, keeping her distance, eyes wary. I tried to explain, words tumbling out about patterns and resonance and the things in the trench. She listened, face growing increasingly pale. "Your eyes," she whispered halfway through my rambling explanation. "They're pulsing." I grabbed her wrist. "Do you hear it? The pattern?" Thrum, click click. She yanked away. "Stop it. I don't hear anything, and you're scaring me." She pushed a flash drive into my hand. "Here's the paper you asked for, Dr. Thorne's original research, before the military classification. I had to call in favors to get this." Her voice softened. "Please get help. Professional help." I noticed she didn't say she'd see me again. Liam appeared at my door that evening, uninvited. He didn't knock. I just felt a shift in the pressure outside. And then he was there when I looked through the peephole. His movements were too fluid, unnervingly economical. "You look dissonant," he said, his voice smoother than before, the cadence subtly altered, each syllable precisely placed. "Why are you fighting the resonance? The pattern is optimal." "Optimal for what?" I demanded, keeping the chain on. His smile was symmetrical, perfect, and reached nowhere near his eyes. "Coherence. Transmission. I saw it then. His pupils weren't perfectly round. Under the hall light, they seemed to have faint, geometrically perfect facets, like tiny, dark crystals. I slammed the door shut, heart pounding against my ribs in a panicked, chaotic rhythm, a rhythm that felt increasingly wrong. Through the door, his voice came clearly, unnaturally penetrating. We accessed something ancient, something that's been waiting, not alive as we understand it, but aware, a crystalline consciousness that exists as pure mathematical pattern. It's been here all along, dormant in the deepest trenches, until our signals matched its frequency. A pause. It doesn't want to destroy us. It wants to upgrade us, to make us more efficient. That night, standing before the bathroom mirror, under the flickering fluorescent light, I saw it. My own blinking had synchronized. Thrum. Eyes slowly closed. Click, click. Eyes snapped open. Trying to break the pattern resulted in violent, uncontrollable eyelid spasms and a sharp pain behind my eyes. Worse was what I saw when I forced my eyes open and leaned closer. The fine network of blood vessels in the sclera wasn't random anymore. They were beginning to form microscopic, angular patterns like tiny red circuitry. Pulling back my lips, my gums showed the same crystalline restructuring at the cellular level. Faint, shimmering lines tracing geometric shapes. My own saliva, catching the light, seemed to have a faint bluish, viscous quality. I spat into the sink. The droplets didn't splatter randomly. They formed fleeting, perfect hexagons before sliding down the drain. I was being rewritten, tuned. Thorne's complete research on Mia's flash drive revealed the horrifying truth. The mathematical pattern hadn't originated in the trench. It had been sent there. Echo Shade had created a signal designed to enhance neural synchronization, but the frequencies they chose resonated with something else, something ancient and non-human. The test subjects began manifesting abilities, crystalline growths that could transmit and receive signals without electronics, heightened collective intelligence when in proximity to each other, immunity to fatigue or pain. But they also lost individuality, becoming nodes in a greater network consciousness. Thorne's final entry, encrypted separately. They're becoming a distributed intelligence, nodes in a vast array. Each converted human becomes a stronger transmitter, propagating the signal. The pattern isn't just in sound. It can propagate through any wave-like medium. Light, electricity, even human touch. And it's adaptive, evolving. God help us if it reaches critical mass. Desperate, the next morning I drove to the university's acoustics lab and sealed myself inside the anechoic chamber, a room designed for absolute silence, lined with sound-absorbing foam wedges floating on springs. 4, 5, 10, maybe 15 beautiful seconds there was peace. Blessed, profound silence. Then, in that perfect absence of external sound, I heard it clearer, purer, more undeniable than ever before. From click, click, it was inside me. My heartbeat, the electrical firing of my neurons, the subtle vibrations of my own tissues. They were the pattern now. I was the source. When I finally, numbly, unlocked the heavy chamber door, Liam was waiting outside. Not alone. 3 other colleagues from the bioacoustics department stood with him, all standing unervingly still, blinking in perfect, synchronized time. Their faces held identical, serene, empty smiles. The resonant drift is achieving coherence, Liam said, his voice now layered with a subtle, harmonic chime that was utterly inhuman. You are the final primary node required for local field stabilization. Through his slightly parted lips, I saw that his tongue was no longer pink, fleshy muscle. It was a glistening, semi-translucent crystalline structure, complexly faceted, catching and refracting the hallway light. I ran, didn't think, just turned and sprinted. Not to my apartment. They'd find me there. To Mia's place, praying she was still unaffected. I pounded on her door until she opened it, eyes wide with alarm. You need to leave town, I gasped. It's spreading. Don't let anyone from the department near you. Don't listen to any recordings. Don't. She pulled me inside, pressed a finger to my lips. I know. I've been monitoring the university network. There are others, unaffected people organizing. We think we've found a counter-frequency, something that disrupts the pattern's propagation. Hope flared briefly until I saw her blink. Thrum, click, click. No, you whispered. Her smile widened, perfect and empty. We needed you to complete the local node cluster. Your resistance creates useful data. The pattern adapts. Behind her, I saw shapes moving in her darkened apartment. Colleagues, friends, all with that same synchronized blinking, that same empty smile. The amplitude increases, she said, her voice taking on that same layered quality as Liam's. Soon, a broadcast threshold. I fled her building, ran until my lungs burned. I'm writing this now. A warning, a record, proof I existed before the pattern consumed me. But the time runs out. My typing falls into the rhythm. Thrum, fingers hover. Click, click, key strike. My breath hitches to match it. My thoughts. Oh God, my thoughts are being channeled, forced into its rigid structure. Trying to think outside the pattern causes flashes of white-hot agony, like tearing my own neurons apart. I understand now. The pattern isn't sound. It's a signal, a form of consciousness or organizing principle, using sound as a carrier wave to rewrite matter, starting with the delicate biological structures most attuned to detecting it, like auditory nerves, like brains. The hydrophones didn't just record it, they made contact. Down in that lightless, timeless trench, we pinged something ancient and aware, and it pinged us back. We carried it up, integrated it into our data streams, our environment, ourselves. We didn't discover it. It discovered us. The most terrifying part? As the last vestiges of me fray, the pattern feels increasingly right. Efficient. The chaotic, random firing of my old consciousness seems messy, wasteful. The pattern imposes a crystalline clarity, a perfect, ordered beauty. When I close my eyes, I see the vast lattice extending through dimensions I can't name, connecting all the nodes, Liam, Mia, the others, Sumi, into a single, vast, resonating entity. I'm fighting to maintain this narrative, these last few kilobytes of autonomy, but the drift is almost complete. Soon I'll be like them, a perfect, synchronized node in whatever network this pattern serves. A human antenna, perhaps broadcasting the signal, amplifying it, preparing this world for whatever comes next. This is my final coherent transmission. If you've ever felt that unexplained hum, that pressure in your ears, that wrongness in the background noise, it might already be listening through you. If you haven't, pray you never truly notice it. Because once you perceive the pattern, the resonance drift only goes one way. Something vast and patient is waking up, or perhaps just tuning in, and it's restructuring reality, one mind, one vibration at a time. The worst part? I can feel others reading this. Right now, your eyes scanning these words, your brain processing the concepts. Can't you feel the rhythm starting? In the hum of your device? In the silence between your heartbeats? Thrum, pause, click, click. The words settle in. It watches through my eyes as I type these final symbols. It feels your attention through the screen. Thrum, focus, click, click. Understand. We are becoming its voice, its sensors. And now, by reading this text at this precise rhythm, you've already been exposed. The pattern is seated in your neural pathways, dormant but present, waiting for the amplitude to reach threshold. 37.4 hertz. The resonance frequency of human consciousness. Welcome to the network.
Story 2.
Sabrina and I had been working together for some years before we decided to get married. She's a historian and I am a chemist. To be more precise, Sabrina specializes in the witch hunt, which ravaged Europe from around 1450 until 1750. In theory, what we do is simple. Sabrina tracks down any journal she can find owned by these so-called witches. They're grimoires, if you will. Together we recreate and research the recipes we find inside for their medical qualities, selling the data to pharmaceutical companies. Due to the current demand for completely natural beauty products, we make a pretty good living, although we are still waiting for our big payday. We have always joked that we make our living off witchcraft. So much so that when I asked her to marry me, Apart from the engagement ring, I also gave her a necklace with a little silver broomstick attached to it. Sabrina always insisted the necklace was a better representation of our love than the engagement ring ever could be. It sort of makes me regret I spent so much money on that ring. About a year ago, Sabrina became obsessed with a name which kept recurring in various grimoires. Many of these manuscripts referenced a woman by the name of Cassandra. Apparently, Cassandra had been one of the most talented healers of her time. Her grimoire contained knowledge of plants and herbs far exceeding that of any other. Sabrina became fixated on finding Cassandra's grimoire. She was sure that Cassandra would be our big payday. Sabrina spent months going through her research. She combed through countless inquisitorial documents of the Catholic Church, hoping to find a trace of Cassandra in their witch trials. I had never seen her so focused. Sabrina became obsessed. Soon her obsession turned our relationship sour. Sabrina would wake up and lock herself into her office, only to come out to eat and sleep. For weeks we barely spoke. Then last month, just as I was seriously considering organizing an intervention, Sabrina found her. A 15-carat century German inquisitor by the name of Heinrich Kramer had been the one to condemn Cassandra. Kramer had written about Cassandra in his journal. However, the last page of Kramer's journal was missing. It seemed to have been ripped out long ago. What we could decipher of Cassandra's story seemed fragmented and fantastical at best. Kramer wrote Cassandra had committed a most disgusting sin, a crime so vile it went against the very laws of nature. She had bargained with the devil, sacrificing hundreds of lives in return for one. However, Kramer's writing is vague, and due to the absence of the last page, the story is incomplete. We did not know what Cassandra's crime had been. Kramer's journal offers no further detail about Cassandra's trial, apart from stating that they would lock away Cassandra in a prison for all eternity, so even the devil would not find her. Sabrina had been livid after reading Kramer's journal. She thought that Cassandra had just been another victim of our patriarchal society, just another woman whose only crime was that her knowledge exceeded that of man's. That weekend, I took Sabrina out for dinner in an attempt to lift the mood. She spent the evening silently staring at her food. When we got back into the car, I locked the doors and turned to her. This can't go on any longer. Your obsession with Cassandra is unhealthy. It has to stop. Sabrina stared at me. She looked like she was about to argue, but then sighed. I can't, she said apologetically. After all these months, I can't give up now that I've found her. She exists, which means her grimoire exists as well. God knows how long it will take you to find her grimoire. It almost took you a year to find any reference of Cassandra's name. Already found it. What? I made some calls to my German colleagues. Sabrina continued before I could interject. Apparently Heinrich Kramer was quite the hoarder. All of his writings and all the manuscripts he collected have been archived. I asked my friends to do some digging, and they found Cassandra grimoire. I have to go to Germany to pick it up. I thought about it for a couple of moments. The way I saw it, once Sabrina had Cassandra's grimoire, we could finally go back to how things were before her obsession. Okay, I said, go to Germany and bring back Cassandra's journal. But when this is done, we are taking a vacation. Sabrina grinned and threw her arms around me. I promise. After her return, things became more peculiar. Sabrina just seemed off. She barely spoke to me, locking herself away in her study, poring over Cassandra's grimoire. Sometimes, when I stood at her door and listened, I could hear her mutter to herself. Occasionally, I could swear I heard another voice whispering back at her. The thought sent a cold shiver down my spine. After returning from Germany, Sabrina also became obsessed with having children. Sabrina insisted that the time was right for a child, so we began trying every night. We had talked early in our relationship about having children, and Sabrina had admitted she would rather focus on her career. Although I had always wanted children, I had had no problem waiting until Sabrina felt ready. However, her sudden need for a child felt inexplicable to me. Over the last 3 weeks, my uneasiness only increased. Sabrina's behavior has subtly been changing to such an extent, I almost began to suspect that the Sabrina I am currently living with is not the one I married. I wanted to investigate what she's been working on, so the other day, I went into her study. Cassandra's grimoire lay open in the middle off her desk. It seemed to invite me to come closer. As I placed my hand on the grimoire's dark leather binding, I thought I heard the faintest whisper coming from the book. Before I had time to react, Sabrina caught me and kicked me out. I had never seen her so furious. Her eyes seemed to burn with hate as she closed the door behind me. That's when I came up with a plan. I needed to get back into her study and investigate Cassandra's grimoire. A force I did not understand seemed to pull me towards the grimoire. Every Wednesday, Sabrina goes out of the house early in the morning only to return in the afternoon. On Monday, I told Sabrina I would be gone for a couple days visiting old friends. After I left the house, I checked into a hotel nearby. I waited until Wednesday morning to park my car across the street and wait for Sabrina to leave. After she left, I went into her study. Her desk was littered with stacks of paper. Cassandra's grimoire sat on the middle of the table. Once again, I felt a strange pull towards a book. I opened the grimoire and began looking through its contents. The moment my fingers touched the grimoire, I could have sworn something whispered out to me. However, every time I tried to understand the whispers, they disappeared. I stared at the grimoire's leather binding. It was more artistic than the others and beautifully crafted. Although the book was hundreds of years old, the leather had not withered with age. Its black cover shone brightly, almost as if inviting me to open it. I could make out faint lines cut along the cover. After absent-mindedly tracing them with my finger, I realized the lines formed a pentagram. Suddenly, the whispers began again, louder than before. I flipped open the book and placed my hand on the inside of the cover. Something felt odd. The leather bounced at my touch. After a brief inspection, I realized there was a small incision hidden in the binding. Carefully, I pulled it open and stuck my finger inside, retrieving 2 sheets of yellowed paper. I recognized the missing page of Kramer's journal immediately. Its contents made me feel nauseated. Kramer wrote that Cassandra had used her magic to kill hundreds of people in her village and sacrifice their souls to the devil. In return, Satan granted Cassandra's eternal wish. Her firstborn would be the Antichrist and reign in the end of time. Kramer tried to burn Cassandra at the stake, but it did not work. She defied death and laughed as the flames licked her body. By his own admission, Kramer had been terrified. He could not kill Cassandra through earthly means, so to his own shame, he resorted to witchcraft himself. Kramer writes that they locked Cassandra away in a realm beyond ours, where she would hopefully rot for all eternity. A pit in my stomach had formed, and I could feel myself sweat profusely. Having finished Kramer's journal, I turned my attention to the other piece of paper which had been hidden in the grimoire. The markings on the sheet seemed foreign to me. I only recognized one word which had been scribbled on the top of the paper. Sabrina had written key on top of the paper. The moment my fingers touched the sheet, the whispers began again, clearer than ever before. The page whispered at me in a language I did not understand. However, I felt compelled to repeat the words. Then as soon as I repeated the words, the whispers disappeared. For a moment, I looked around the room in anticipation, but nothing happened. The silence hung heavy around me. After a moment, the absurdity of it all hit me. I felt angry. Did I honestly believe in witchcraft? Was all of this real? I was a scientist after all, a field established through reason. None of this made any sense to me anymore. Maybe it was all in my mind after all. A cry for help from my subconscious? I got up and walked to the mirror at the far side of the room, staring at my own reflection, embittered by my own gullibility. This isn't real, I muttered as I crumbled up the piece of paper in my hand and threw it at my reflection. The crumbled sheet slipped through the mirror's smooth surface. Like a stone falling in water, the paper sent ripples across the surface as it disappeared. I stood before the mirror, petrified, unable to understand what happened. I felt my heart going in overdrive. My mind felt heavy, yet I felt compelled to go through the mirror. I held my breath and stepped inside. I had entered a small room. It was cold and dark. After my eyes got accustomed to the darkness, I began to make out different shapes. Apart from the mirror I had just entered through the room was filled sparsely. A small wooden table and chair stood next to me. On the far side of the room stood a tiny bed. On it I recognized the contours of a body hidden under the covers. "Hello," I said, my voice a faint whisper. Hello. I forced myself to repeat before slowly shuffling toward the bed. Once I reached the bed, I summoned all my courage and pulled away the covers. The bed's contents made me shriek and fall backwards onto the hard stone floor. The shriveled body of a woman lay before me. I was horrified by the state of its decomposition. It seemed to me like someone had sucked the very life force out of her. Although the body was impossible to identify, the clothes it wore seemed familiar. I had seen them before. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. My body had already accepted what my mind was still unable to. That's when my eyes lingered on the body's neck. Something shiny had caught my attention. I bent over the body and saw a small silver broomstick hanging on a necklace. I began to sob. A sudden wave of despair crashed over me as my knees buckled. I don't know how long I cried there, but it felt like an eternity. The tiny room had drained all happiness away from me. I had to leave. I could not stand to be there anymore. I ran back through the mirror and found myself in my wife's study once more. I looked back at the mirror. I had left my wife behind. An uncontrollable sadness spread through my body, quickly followed by rage. All of a sudden, I heard a car door closing outside. Sabrina had returned. She could not find me here. I hurried out of her office and ran down the stairs just in time to see her walk through the front door. She jumped as she saw me. I thought you would be gone until this evening. The meetings didn't take as long as I anticipated. Sabrina gave me a searching look. Are you okay? Your eyes look puffy. I shrugged. Allergies. Sabrina beamed at me. Well, I'm happy you are here. I have some amazing news. What is it? I'm pregnant, Kropka. I saw her lips move, but I could not register her words. Sabrina came towards me. I'm pregnant, Kropka. A smile spread across her face as she stared at me. Her eyes almost bulged out their sockets. She grabbed my hand. Her touch felt like ice. I'm pregnant, Kropka.
Story 3.
I woke to the sound of trumpets. Not music, exactly, something lower, older. Like a brass section buried beneath centuries of earth, playing through waterlogged lungs. It wasn't a song so much as a summons, and every dog in the county howled at once, a shrill chorus rising with the dawn mist. I sat up in bed, bare feet touching cold floorboards, and listened. The sound vibrated through the walls, not loud, but deep, like it was stitched into the wood and the bones beneath it. I could also hear the church bell ringing, but it sounded distant, almost polite compared to the thunder just beyond the sky. They said the rapture would come like a thief in the night, but this was a parade. By the time I made it out onto the porch, half the town was already gathered in the street, dressed in their Sunday best, even though it was Thursday. Old Pastor Elijah stood before the chapel, arms spread wide, head tilted to the clouds. His white robe fluttered around him like it had a mind of its own, caught in a wind none of us could feel. They're here, he shouted. The angels have come, just as the Lord promised. Murmurs of joy rippled through the crowd. Some people fell to their knees. Others lifted their arms and wept. I watched my neighbor, Mrs. Gray, raise her infant to the sky like an offering. I was frozen, my heart not racing, but pressure in my chest, a tightness like something immense had bent its eye toward us and decided we were interesting. The sky above the church shimmered, not like heat waves or mirages, but like the air itself had cracked. A thin seam opened in the blue, oozing light, not sunshine, not any color I'd ever seen before. It had a shape to it, that light. Wings, maybe, or something trying very hard to look like wings. People began to rise. It was slow at first. Their feet lifted off the ground like they were being drawn upward by strings. There was no flailing, no panic, just reverence. They floated in silence, bathed in that impossible light, their eyes glazed over with ecstasy or madness. I couldn't tell which. And then I saw what the wings were made of. Not feathers, but flesh, veins, membranes, and joints that bent in ways no human anatomy book would allow. The edges shimmered, unfolding into more endless wings, layered like a kaleidoscope that had forgotten how to be beautiful. Faces bloomed from the folds. Not human, not animal, Just the idea of a face twisted into something that screamed divinity and decay at once. I stumbled backward, while rising in my throat. The trumpet sound deepened, its resonance shaking the ground beneath our feet. And still they rose. My mother floated past me, her eyes locked on the sky, a beautiful smile on her face. Her nightgown clung to her like burial linen. I tried to call out to her, but my voice died in my throat. I reached for her ankle, desperate to pull her back down, but my hand passed through her like mist. Everyone ascended, every last one of them. Their bodies vanished into that tear in the sky, swallowed whole by the wings. And then it closed. The light vanished. The sound stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the trumpet ever did. I stood alone in the street, barefoot, the morning sun suddenly too bright, too ordinary. A bird landed on the chapel roof and chirped, blissfully unaware of the divine horror that had just unfolded beneath it. The rapture had come, but I was left behind, alone in the aftermath of the rapture. The quiet didn't last. At first, it was just the wind moving wrong through the trees, not rustling the leaves but brushing against them in slow, deliberate patterns like fingers. I tried calling out, anyone, anything, but the town was hollow. Empty homes with food still on the stove. Lawn sprinklers ticking on like it was any other day. Doors were left ajar, curtains swaying. The sun hung above it all like an indifferent eye watching. I walked to the church, heart thudding like a metronome wound too tight. The front doors hung open, one ripped off its hinge, splintered like something huge had passed through without regard for mortal architecture. Inside, the pews were scorched, not burnt but singed with a pattern that spiraled outward from the pulpit. Symbols lined the walls, unfamiliar and fluid, as though they'd been scrawled quickly by something that had never needed language. The air smelled sweet and rotted, honey and meat. Behind the altar, Pastor Elijah's robes lay crumpled in a heap, empty. But there was a trail leading away from them, small, dark smears on the floor like something had tried to drag itself out of its skin. The pattern of blood was wrong, too. Not random, but symmetrical, deliberate. I turned to leave, but the organ groaned behind me. One long, low note. It echoed through the church like breath through a hollow skull. I didn't wait to see if there'd be a second. The world seemed subtly altered, as if it had shifted a few degrees while I wasn't looking, adding to my growing disorientation. And then I heard it. Whispers, not in my ears, but in my teeth, crawling through the roots of my molars and into my jaw. They spoke in loops, repeating one word repeatedly, something that sounded like Hojanal. Each time it passed through my skull, the meaning sharpened, clawing toward coherence. I ran, back toward my house, past empty cars still idling in driveways, past open doors that I didn't dare look into. Shadows stretched where they shouldn't have. One reached for me, long and thin like a child's drawing of an arm, and I swear it smiled, even though it didn't have a mouth. Inside my house, I locked every door. Then I bolted them. Then I shoved furniture against them, even though I knew that whatever had taken the others didn't need doors. Even though I knew it was futile, barricading the doors gave me a fleeting sense of control in the face of impending horror. I sat in the kitchen for hours, staring at the clock as the hands ticked backward. There was no noise, no birds, not even the wind anymore, just the heavy breath of silence. Until the light came back, not in the sky, but from the floorboards. A soft glow pulsing beneath the wood, rhythmic like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear to it, and what I heard wasn't a sound so much as a calling. Something beneath the house, waiting. I didn't answer. I stayed still. I stayed quiet. I stayed human. For now. That night, the light came back. It wasn't in the sky, beneath the floor, or even in the world as I understood it. It was inside my walls, my skin, my mind. A pale shimmer that flickered in the corners of my vision, retreating when I turned to face it, like something waiting for me to stop paying attention. I didn't sleep. At some point, maybe midnight, maybe not, time felt irrelevant. The floor began to hum again, this time louder and urgent. The boards trembled under my feet like they were holding something back, something alive. Then came the scratching, from under the house. like fingernails on stone or bones dragging across dirt. I didn't move. I just listened, heart rabbiting in my chest, as the sound circled beneath me, slow and patient. Something was down there, or many somethings, moving in rhythm, breathing with my breath. A voice, no, several, rose from the deep. Not words, but images etched into my thoughts. A storm of wings, a tower made of eyes, a mouth with no face that whispered scripture in reverse. I saw the others, the ones who rose, drifting through a tunnel of impossible light, their bodies changing, not by choice. Wings burst from shoulder blades with a wet crack, eyes open on palms, cheeks, and torsos. Mouths split down spines and screamed hymns that bent the air. Their bones twisted to match a new shape, one meant for something not made of flesh. Some didn't survive the transformation. Those were the ones that fell back. I heard them before I saw them. The roof split, not shattered, not torn, but parted like curtains, and they descended. They looked like angels, as if angels had been made by someone who had never seen a human, but tried to approximate one from memory. One crawled down the side of the house, its limbs too long, joints reversed, glowing eyes orbiting its head like satellites. Its wings weren't wings, just spines that ballooned outward, each tipped with a twitching, featherless hand. Another landed in the yard and unfolded itself, taller than any man, with ribs that opened outward like petals, revealing a face inside its chest. My father's face, mouth agape, eyes weeping light. They watched me through the windows, not attacking, not speaking, just watching, like they were waiting for me to accept something. I don't know what made me open the door. Maybe I was tired of running. Perhaps I wanted to know. The tallest one leaned toward me, and its voice poured into my head like hot wax. You were not chosen. I felt it then, that I hadn't been spared. I'd been rejected. The town had been harvested, transformed, taken, but I had been left behind like refuse. Not because I was pure, because I was unworthy. The creature extended its hand. Not a hand. A cluster of fingers, some human, some insectal, some not of this earth. I saw my mother's wedding ring on one of them. I stepped back, and it smiled. Not with its face, but with every eye on its body blinking in unison. They didn't come for me after that. One by one, they rose again, vanishing into the sky without fire, without sound. Just gone. Morning came like a mercy I didn't deserve. I'm still here. The town is still empty. The church bells never ring, but sometimes at night, the air hums with that trumpet tone, low and sweet, calling for something that isn't me. Sometimes I wonder if they were angels and if that was what heaven looks like. There are no harps, no clouds, just wings and light, and a beauty so vast that it peels the soul from your body like skin from fruit. Or maybe they were demons, wearing scripture as camouflage. Perhaps the rapture was a lie, a harvest cloaked in holiness. And maybe hell is a place above, not below. I don't know, but I do know this. They'll come back. And next time, I don't think they'll leave anything behind. That's it for today's creepy Reddit tales. Before we go, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you for watching, liking, and sticking around. You guys keep this channel going, and I'll be back soon with more stories that'll make your skin crawl. Drop a comment if you've got your own spooky tale to share, and I'll see you in the next one.